hard for people to understand how to devote your life thinking about how to build thinking machines. In the 70s and in the 80s, how ostracized you were from the mainstream. If you were a professor, that kind of pursuit was career suicide. Now, of course, if you have published papers on how to make a human-level thinking machine, you won't get denied tenure. Big companies are using AGI as a marketing ploy. Totally changed. In the 80s, when you told people you wanted to create a thinking machine, then people just thought you were nuts. That was the early community. This was like a bunch of wacky mavericks, like howling out in the wilderness.
Ben, we were best of friends. In fact, people close to us called us Nebnek, which is Ben, Ken, spelled backwards. We were equal in intellectual capacity, and we had equal interests.
But it was me who said, look, I'll build it. I'll build the first thinking machine.
Ken Silverman was one of my closest friends in my first year at a place called Simon's Rock College. My parents moved me to New Jersey from Eugene, Oregon after the first grade. Total culture shock. In Jersey, being intellectual and broad-minded was a mark against you, much like being deformed or something. Every day I tried to find a different route to get home from school to avoid the gang of 10 kids trying to beat the crap out of me. Constant violence, so I wanted to get out of there. And much to my delight, I found myself entering university at age 15.
My first experience with Ben was there at Simon's Rock. Ben was the only person at that school that I took a liking to.
I went from engaging in physical combat with obnoxious kids after school every day to suddenly being surrounded by intelligent, intellectual, interesting people my own age.
Ben had a girlfriend named Gwen. Ben, Ken, and Gwen. I didn't interact much with Gwen. Found no redeeming qualities. She was a very good artist.
I met him after I was there for only a few days. And there was a dance where he was not dancing, only I was. He had the long hair, and his intelligence struck me, and that was, like, I guess, top of my list of attractive qualities in the opposite sex, I guess. He was very driven from the start, driven in the sense of, I'm going to be rich and famous.
These ideas that sound crazy to the average person are just everyday common sense to someone who grew up in the science fiction universe.
I can perform 36 separate and distinct acts.
It was Ben and I, speaking about science fiction, that created this seed together, having this conversation about what a human thought is all about. hours and days and weeks of conversing about this at Simon's Rock.
Long debates on how to build a thinking machine.
We materialized those concepts together, understanding what thought was, what a human thought was. That's what we were talking about.
He started fleshing out that idea there.
I started to get the idea that I really knew how to do it. I told him, look, Ken, I'm going to go home for spring break, and, you know, in a week I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you my design for how to build a thinking machine.
You figure that part out on a theoretical level, and I'll build it. So I suppose it was me that said, I'm going to build the first thinking machine, Ben.
Many of the ideas I thought of in that spring break wound up in my books later on, in my overall theory of how the mind works.
It was a thought in both of our minds, not just Ben's mind.
The idea I had had that semester of college, in hindsight, was pretty high level. I had thought of ways to mathematically formulate what a pattern is and how to formulate the mind as a collection of patterns, including patterns regarding how to recognize patterns. And I figured if you had patterns regarding how to recognize patterns, then you could construct a system that would recognize patterns in the world, recognizing patterns in itself, and the pattern recognizing patterns would then recognize patterns in how to recognize patterns better. The whole thing would recurse and self-improve and get smarter and smarter and smarter, and bingo, a massively intelligent thinking machine.
A system that can self-exist, self-function, self-evolve, learn, and be aware to a point that's greater than that of man.
But ultimately, that spring break of college was the first time I realized what the AI problem was really about, which basically amount to resource restrictions. The process of recognizing patterns in the world and yourself, it's conceptually simple. But I came to the realization that building an AGI was going to be a large project that would take a fairly large team of people, a significant amount of time to do.
I see what we're doing in the lab and what's going on outside it. It's gotten bigger. It's turned into a protest against the communist regime. It scares me. The mainland Chinese government is investing in AI because they believe that it can give them power over their people. But I don't know whether Ben is fully capable of grasping how ruthless people in the government may be. I think they're both using each other, but they don't see the significance of each other's goals.
If you just hold it like that, probably I can check what's happening. Yeah, make it stand,
Yeah. Hey, but it moved just before it started.
Hip is moving, yeah.
This week is largely a mad rush to get a couple of little robots working from the standpoint of showing things off to the government funders. They come by periodically to check on our progress, to be sure that we're doing what we said we would do in the grant proposal that we gave them.
If they want the dream to be shown to them, then it has to be shown to them. Otherwise, you won't get funding, you won't be able to do what you want to do.
If the funders become unhappy, the next time we submit them a proposal, they're going to think, well, these guys didn't do what they said they would do in the robotics proposal. Maybe we shouldn't fund them. So it's pretty important to keep the guys with the money happy.
We have some things which are not working and we are finding it hard to debug right now.
It's stressful. It has people working into the evening. It has people working Saturday and Sunday and so forth.
Where's this sound coming from?
That's not a problem. Just see if it can.
It doesn't sound great though. It sounds like
No.
a cog.